Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at Morphy's with an Interdynamics MP-9 submachine gun. This is a very simple submachine gun, but it's a very rare submachine gun, and it is the gun that is the very beginning of the story that will eventually lead to the TEC-9. So I thought this would be a cool one to go over with in anticipation of covering the rest of this whole family of firearms in a series of later videos. This one begins in Sweden. Interdynamics AB was a Swedish company that decided it wanted to try making a very simple, cheap machine pistol, essentially submachine gun, for the Swedish army or for military clients. And they very quickly found no interest from the Swedish military. This was designed by a guy named Kellgren in Sweden. In 1979, he ends up moving to the United States as part of a plan to take this same design and sell it on the US civilian market as a semi-automatic. He partners up with a Cuban-American guy by the name of Carlos Garcia, and they form Interdynamics USA. Essentially, it's just the US branch of this Swedish company. And they take the machine pistol, and at this point, it's a very simple open bolt blowback machine pistol, and they just give it a semi-auto trigger mechanism, convert it into a semi-auto open bolt pistol, and start selling it as the KG-9. That's KG for Kellgren-Garcia, K and G. By the way, Kellgren, when he moved to the US, anglicized his name to George Kellgren, who you may recognize from Grendel and now Intratec. This is the first gun that he did in the United States. At any rate, they're doing this. 1982, they introduced the semi-auto KG-9, and they also make a couple dozen registered transferrable, because this is before 1986, MP-9 submachine guns. So let's take a look at what that MP-9 is. Where did the TEC-9 start? All right, this thing is really simple. So if you ignore this and ignore the stock, you can see essentially a TEC-9 hiding underneath there. It is an open bolt gun. The relevant markings are here on the left side of the magazine wall. Interdynamic, Miami, Florida, model MP-9. And if we look right up here, we have a little metal plate embedded into the injection molded polymer frame. That, by the way, was a big part of what Intratec and Interdynamic base their designs on. Polymer molding. Anyway, serial number plate there, this is number 21. They did not make very many of these guys. And that little round cross dealy is the Interdynamic company logo. This does have a semi-auto functionality, which you'll see when we take it apart. And so you just get it by flipping that. F is fire, A is automatic. That's all there is to it there. The magazine release is just a simple lever. Unfortunately, I do not have a magazine for this piece. It's a magazine that is essentially derived from the M45 Carl Gustaf, the Swedish K trapezoidal, as you can see there, but doesn't actually take Swedish K magazines. And the previous owner did not have a magazine for this. The previous owner, by the way, was none other than Bill Fleming, well known to folks who are into HK stuff. Now, the collapsing stock is an element of this that definitely didn't get into any of the later pistol designs. It deploys just by pulling it out until these latches lock in those little notches. So that's just got a very simple spring to it. In order to collapse the stock, you have to pull down, come on, there we go. You have to pull down the latches on both sides. So here, and here, they're not connected, they are independent, and you have to drop them both out of their little locking notches to be able to collapse the stock. It's just a really simple two-piece wire stock with some plastic on the back to make a vaguely butt pad-like thing that holds the two pieces of wire together. Very simple sights, front ramp, rear notch, windage adjustable, drift adjustable for windage. There is no safety lever. However, you do have essentially a half bolt travel secondary sear, so that prevents it from firing if dropped, if it bolts closed and there's a loaded mag in it. And fully cocked is back there. Fires like so. And then the safety is this top notch, where you can lock the bolt handle in place to hold it in place so it can't close. That's your safety. Disassembly is done by removing this cross pin, which locks the metal tube upper assembly to the polymer lower assembly. We just pop that out. There we go. All right, extended out the stock to get the rails out of the way. The recoil spring is probably going to go flying across the room here, but we just lift this up. Ooh, there we go. Hi, I got it. When I took this apart before I filmed it, this popped up off of the rear plate there and went flying across the room. All right, so that's the upper assembly. Spring and guide rod come out. The bolt comes back to there. You can then pull the bolt handle out. Note the extra large round bit there. This is, of course, farther back than the bolt can go with the spring in place so that you can't accidentally have the charging handle come out while the gun's assembled. That's the bolt. That's all there is to it. It is just a solid chunk. It's got a slot for an ejector. It's got a firing pin. It's got an extractor in there. The extractor is held in place by that little set screw. Fixed firing pin, open bolt firing. The upper receiver tube has essentially nothing in it except a barrel fixed in place there. It does have a single compensator slot for what it's worth, and it has a very coarse thread there for a suppressor. I don't know if they ever actually marketed suppressors, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure if that fits an Ingram, like a Mac suppressor, but it might. It looks about right. The lower assembly is one big polymer molded component. It has the slightest of rubber buffers here to absorb some energy from the bolt when it hits the back of the receiver there. This is the sear. It's just a flat piece of steel. It's not quite sheet metal, but it's pretty close to it. And when you pull the trigger, you've got a spring there holding it up. The trigger connects to this little tab right here. So I'm in automatic right now. It just pulls down, fires until you release the trigger. Now in semi-auto mode, it does the exact same thing, but it doesn't quite go as far down. So that's semi, that's full. Just a little bit longer travel. And what that does is drop this, which is the semi-auto disconnector. So if I pull the trigger this far, this is semi-auto mode, when the bolt goes forward, it's going to hit that and bump it forward off the sear, which releases the sear, which means when the bolt comes back after firing a single shot, it will catch. And in order to pull it down again, I have to release the trigger and pull it a second time. So a very simple semi-auto mechanism. You can certainly see how if that was all they did for the KG-9 semi-auto version, it would be very easy to turn that into a machine gun. Anyway, that is the ejector fixed in place. It rides in that slot in the bolt right there, just like that. When the bolt comes back, that'll kick an empty case out. And that's it. That's the MP-9 all field strip. There's very little to this. The semi-auto open bolt KG-9 pistol was introduced by Interdynamics USA, or Interdynamic USA, in 1982. And then in 1982, ATF came out with a ruling that it was being considered a machine gun because it was an open bolt semi-auto, readily convertible, blah, 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 blah. And so Kellgren had to go ahead and redesign it to be a closed bolt semi-auto design, redesignating it the KG-99. Now, about that same time, it's not clear to me exactly what drove this, but the two partners ended up splitting. Garcia founded a company called Intratec and bought out Kellgren's interest in Interdynamic USA. Kellgren took the money he got from selling his half of that company and used it to, within a few years, found Grendel, his first independent gun company. Grendel later shut down in 1994 as a result of the assault weapons ban and was brought back to life as Keltec CNC, which continues to exist today, making all sorts of very creative and interesting firearms. Garcia would take Intratec and develop this gun into the TEC-9, which led to a whole series of different firearms and a bunch of relatively important legal work in the 1980s, 1990s surrounding the assault pistol, and that is a whole ball of wax for a different video. So very cool to get a chance through Morphes here to have a look at one of the very few transferable existing interdynamic MP-9 submachine guns. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption. Just want to remind you guys of the History of Weapons and War streaming service, where we have 10 different channels of historical, educational, small arms content with more than 6,000 videos, including exclusive and expanded content. Things including shooting.
All right. You ready for this?
Reloading.
The rim diameter. Now just
expert discussion.
I mean,
oh, look at this.
Deep dive information.
which is effectively what it is.
Join today, get your first week free. Check it out.